Hey, everybody.
Hey everyone, welcome to the webinar. We're going to get started here in just about 1 minute. We'll give folks a chance to get signed in. All right, Dr. Wright, are you seeing some folks signing into the webinar yet?
So we should be. Nope. It says we're live, but so far, let's see here. Yeah, I gotta be careful because I could get double.
That echoey thing, right? Well, why don't we get started? And then, because we know we're recording this and it's going to be distributed out on all the social media presences for the American Lipedema Association, Dr. Wright's pages, Patty's pages, which is Lipedema Fitness, and then my pages, which are legslikemine.com as well. So welcome everyone to the first webinar of the American Lipedema Association. And today we're going to be doing a few things. First of all, we'd like to introduce you to the board of directors this year for the American Lipedema Association. We'll talk a little bit about what the ALA is and what our strategic pillars are, how you can join, and then one of our very first advocacy efforts today, which is going to be supporting the proposal that's on the table with the Centers for Disease Control to implement ICD-10 codes for lipedema. And Dr. Wright is here today to talk with us specifically about the challenges that he as a provider has to providing care for his patients without the existence of the codes, and then a little bit about what you can do yourself as an advocate to help support that initiative. And then we'll open it up at the end for any Q&As that you have, and we'll be taking some notes here on the background just in case we don't get to all of the questions that we have today. So why don't we go ahead and start with some brief introductions, and I'll start. So my name is Susan O'Hara, and I am the current president of the American Lipedema Association. You all may know me from my website and social media called legslikemine.com. I have social medias across all of the different channels, and then I also have a footwear company that is making specialty shoes just for late-stage lipedema patients. And I will hand it over to, how about I hand it over to Patty Cornute next?
Hi, I'm Patty. I am Lipedema Fitness. That's what I've been under for the past decade. We specialize in trying to support patients in staying as active as possible. I've been a roundtable host with a couple of other patients and some medical professionals, so you may see me on the monthly roundtables. And I'm really excited about this collaboration because it's bringing the medical and the patients together, and we can advocate for the rights and things that will benefit the lipedema community.
Mm-hmm. And before I hand it over to Dr. Wright, I just want to say that Patty is a fierce researcher and a fierce advocate. You have been all over social media doing interviews this week, talking about the ICD-10 codes and what folks can do to get involved, not only as patients and members of the ALA, but as just straight up patients, friends, family, caregivers, and stuff. And we thank you so much for paving the way for so many of us who've followed your footsteps with the advocacy work that we do online. So thank you, Patty. All right, next we'll hand it over to Dr. Thomas Wright for his intro.
I have had a passion for treating and research, treating women with lipedema, going back. I mean, it started, actually my grandmother had lipedema, but we didn't call it lipedema. We called it her German legs. And that's because her family had these, but anyways, so there was a great need for help for these women, so I've been treating it for years, and then I've been doing research for the last 10 years on them as well. And so I was just tickled when when Susan reached out to me about creating this, the American Lipedema Association, because we needed an organization to do some advocacy, help, help with curriculum, advocating for more information and training of healthcare providers. It's so needed, and as well as other advocacy such as ICD-10 and other very important things to the lipedema world and community.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Wright. And also, so Dr. Wright practices medicine out of O'Fallon, Missouri tell us the name of your company that you run there.
Well, so I have Lipedema Surgical Solutions is my lipedema focused company, but I do have also a vein and cosmetic practice called Laser Lipo and Veins.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. So we wanted to tell you all a little bit about the American Lipedema Association, and it was founded this year in June of this year during Lipedema Awareness Month, and it's something that a lot of the patients have wanted and needed to put together for a while. And this association is a registered nonprofit that is a 501c3 with the IRS, which is awesome because that gives us the power to unify our voices, to be able to go in and advocate for things just like this ICD-10 thing that we're talking about, but so many other issues. But it also gives patients the ability to join as part of the Lipedema World Alliance, which was just recently formed last year. And you have to be a registered 501c3 patient group to be able to join as just an individual member or as a patient yourself. So that's one of the main reasons why we formed this organization. There's power in multiple voices. There's power in bringing people together. What we don't do is research. We don't perform research because there are other organizations that do that. We take the information that's learned from research efforts from groups like the Lipedema Foundation, from the Lipedema Project, and other organizations, Vanderbilt University, et cetera. And we take evidence-based information and share it out to our organization's members and other like colleges and universities to try and raise awareness of our condition. So we are advocacy. We provide patient support and community building, awareness and education, both within the community and outside of the community. And then finally, advocacy for quality care to all who have our condition. So that's what the ALA is about. I wanted to open it up to both Patty and Dr. Wright as well. Why do you all think that having a nonprofit for supporting patients and caregivers and family members is important? Is there anything else that I missed in that brief intro?
No, I think you've really kind of encapsulated what we were talking about, what we were hoping to do. And I think we all across the board, not just the three of us, but everybody in the community really has stepped up over the years in sharing their journeys and their stories. And for me, this was really about bringing all of that energy and effort together and having that unified voice.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's super important is that the membership costs are extremely low. So it's $15 for patients, family members, or caregivers to join per year, and then $50 for organizations to join. But the other important factor of it is that every single patient has the opportunity to be a member, whether you can pay the $15 or not. So if you want to join the ALA and you can't or don't want to pay the $15, just drop us an email at AmericanLipedema@gmail.com and give us your name and address information, and we will sign you up as a member. And that holds true. Like there's no limit to how many scholarships we will provide for folks to join. We want everybody to feel like you're welcome and invited and a part of our community. We aren't advocating any particular treatment path. We know that there are many ways that you can handle therapies and treatments for different patients, and that everybody's path is different. And that's one of the things that specifically, Patty, I'm going to just kind of call you up. Patty was really adamant about is like, we need to be open to all evidence-based treatment pathways for patients because everybody's story is different. And that's what we are absolutely about. So we don't advocate surgery. We don't advocate certain supplements or anything like that. We just share the information that's evidence-based that you can find on PubMed or other published research publications. So, and again, we don't advocate any particular company as well. So that's really, really important that we're open and fair. And what we are advocating for is the patients. We're all about making sure that the patients have the right information and they have what they need in their hands whenever they go to get diagnosed, to go get to fight for insurance coverage or whatever it is that you're looking for. We want to be an extra resource for you so that you know what your options are and that you have everything you can in your arsenal whenever you go to ask for that help. So I'm going to just pause for a second. Patty, Dr. Wright, anything else that you wanted to say about the ALA in general and kind of what we stand for?
Well, I just want to echo on, that every patient is individual, and and it's only right and proper to not advocate any specific treatment for any individual. That should be decided between the patient and their treating physician. But also, we want to also try and keep our ethics clean. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I know. I think it was after FDRS, a bunch of us had been talking. I don't know if it was on one of the roundtables or in a live afterwards, and we were talking about how can we spread awareness further than we already are individually. And for me, that's a big, I look to that. I look to, I got interested in, the fascia and connective tissue because that was a component of lipedema, and I branched out into that arena. And, I know hormones are a big thing, and I'd love to branch out into that arena. And I think that we can do that better as this group and brainstorming and coming up, well, what else can we do to advance the awareness of lipedema? So that was really my passion behind wanting to do something like this.
Right, absolutely. And I guess the last thing about sort of what we are and what we stand for is we hope that this organization will live on. So just like any other nonprofit organization in the United States, we'll serve a term, and next year we'll invite other folks to join the board, and eventually that'll rotate out. So it's not a Susan O'Hara thing, it's not a Dr. Wright thing or a Patty Cornuke thing.
Right.
In a couple of years, you'll see a different board of directors that are here that keep on running the show. And so it really is owned by the patients and the providers and the caregivers. And, this will be something that gets handed on to the next crew to carry on. And of course, we'll be members probably for life, but we really are wanting to build something that belongs to the patient community long term. So how can you join the American Lipedema Association? So if you go to americanlipedemaassociation.org, click on join us membership pages, you'll see it up there at the very top. There is a quick form that you can fill out. Or if you're looking for that scholarship, just drop us that email to americanlipedemaassociation@gmail.com, and we will get you hooked up. And usually the very next day, you'll get the welcome message and some graphics and stuff that you can share on social media and start receiving our newsletters and invitations to events like this as well. So, okay. So anything else about the ALA before we jump into the hot topic of the day?
Not
okay. Okay. All right. So
I do. So first of all, I want to thank all the people who who joined us and are helping with the comments and giving us feedback. I was my audio was a little low. I hope it's better now. So thanks for all the listeners and the feedback already. So please, we really appreciate any feedback or during this. We want this to be interactive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now we're going to move forward and talk a little bit about the ICD-10 work. And Patty and Dr. Wright, I'm really going to hand this over to you. Patty did an incredible interview with Sarah Bramblett the other day, who has been a member of the team that got the Lymphedema Treatment Act passed just in the last couple of years. And so I really want to hand it over to you all to talk a little bit about the ICD-10 codes and why they're important, and kind of walk us through all of everything to do with the ICD-10. And because Patty did such a fabulous job of interviewing Sarah the other day, I really am going to kind of mute out and let you all talk about it. And then I'm sure I'll jump in because I can't keep quiet. So there you go. Y'all take it away.
Patty, you want to start?
Sure. I don't know how many people or watched the ICD-10 presentation last week that Dr. Herbst did. She did it on the benefit of getting lipedema added to the ICD-10 codes. And the reason we're trying to get it added to the ICD-10 codes is because the ICD-11 codes, we don't know when that's actually going to take place. I think it was something like 24 years between 10 getting presented and getting, adopted. Thank you. And so that's why it's really adamant that we're trying to get it now, because we need codes now so we can, one, be classified as an actual disease and an illness, because we have doctors who still don't recognize it as being official. And we've been lucky enough that Dr. Herbst has been such a cheerleader, and Dr. Wright, it was your idea initially to go down this path. And I just am so honored that we have medical people who are standing up for us. And when they turned it over at the end and said that we could have comments added, and that it could be from patients and caregivers and family and all of that, I thought that was a really great opportunity. And then I saw our community kind of blow up with do this, do this, do this. And people had questions and why are we doing it? And I'm just a huge fan of Sarah's. And I just asked her to come on, and she was really gracious and said, sure. And she gave us a lot of information about it. And for me, what I took away from that, and also Dr. Herbst came on the roundtable on Wednesday night, between both of those was, it's just important to get the lipedema code. And so for me, when I wrote in, I said, I am a patient with lipedema. I support Dr. Herbst's presentation and presenting lipedema as an ICD-10 code. And that here is why it affects me, because I'm not able to, I'm struggling with like GLP-1 medications right now. And I'm not approved. And if I had a lipedema code, that may be helpful for me to get medications, not necessarily the GLP-1s, but whatever medication or whatever treatment I'm looking for. So that's really what we had kind of talked about and looked at how we best benefit. And I know Dr. Wright, we've kind of had this discussion, and it really came across from Dr. Herbst on Wednesday too, is that you don't want to muddy the water. You just want to get at least one code in. And so there's a lot of stuff going back and forth about what stages are in there. And there's, just a lot of confusion around it. So for me, I was trying to keep it as simple as possible and just talk about lipedema and not try to say all the other things that could maybe confuse the CDC and make Dr. Herbst and the team have to respond to each of those comments that come back. There was something she kind of said about that as well. So I'm going to let you take that because I know you know more on that side of it than I do. So.
Well, I want to just amplify on that. So getting a code. So why is a code so important? So we have, when you go to the doctor and they're not familiar with lipedema, and you say you might even bring, so the Lipedema Foundation has a great handout you can bring to them, and they may say, oh yes, well this looks like it, but then they go and they want to give you that diagnosis. Well, they can't find that diagnosis, and so right now there's really there's really the only thing that even says lipedema is an unspecified code that's just general edema, which doesn't. So, and you have to, literally it takes 5 minutes or, more than a couple minutes just to dig through all the things to even find that. And it takes a lot of, that's not something that, your average doctor has time to or can do. So, but it's a non-specific. Right now, we can only code it non-specifically, and we code it with like leg pain and these sort of things, and that's first of all, it doesn't. It's not fair to the patients. This is how sometimes, some hurtful things can be said by people. Well, it's not really there, so this is an internet disease or something like that. And these are, it's just really, that's the worst part of it. But more often, it's not properly diagnosed and assigned, and that affects patients' ability to get care and the services that they need. Um,
And also for research, we need the codes for research.
well, yes. So that was I was leading up to that, but I don't
I'm
wanna,
sorry.
no. It's great. It's great. And so yeah, clinical research. You can't right now. It's nearly impossible to do clinical research without a specific code. If you're in a big medical system, you're not going to be able to. You have no idea how many people are with lipedema are being seen, and without and you can't. You'd have to search 20 different codes and guess. And so that's not correct. We should need to, we should have a proper code.
And it's international, right? It's supposed to be so that wherever you are, it's kind of uniform, correct?
Yeah. So right now, I know of Germany and Austria have adopted the codes, or have already adopted the codes we are proposing. So they're already in place and working in Germany and Austria, and I believe more countries are also in the process of adopting them, and I'm not sure exactly how many have, but this is already out there. It's not like we are creating this code already exists and is already being used, and so it is the only code that's being used right now, and of course, as we learn more about lipedema, we might change the coding or the and then there's questions about what chapter of the ICDs and I'm going to get to that. There's a question from Jenny B. So stage 4 is part of it, but we actually believe in all. So the initial stages were described by Schmeller, and there are 3 stages, and then there was an attempt for a few years in the literature to create a 4th stage, and it was sort of vaguely so the stages as they exist are descriptive of the tissue of lipedema. So they describe the stage 1. The appearance from a distance is smooth, not and then the appearance is nodular in stage 2, and then there are lobules present in stage 3. So those are that's what stages is. It's an appearance. It has nothing to do with the physiology of the disease. And then there was attempts to for a while there were clinicians who tried to add a 4th stage, and which is really a kind of a physiologic change. The problem is that there's so the 4th stage would be when there's lymphatic involvement, but there's lymphatic involvement in stage 1, in stage 2, and in stage 3. So then so would you be like stage 2, 4, or 3, 4? I mean, it doesn't make sense. So um, that fourth stage has largely been abandoned in in the literature and among researchers and clinicians focused on lipedema. Now, that doesn't mean that that lipedema does not impact lymphedema. In fact, it's actually the opposite. We actually believe that that and there's a lot of empirical evidence that much of the lipedema um, has some lymphatic impairment, and it's really actually it makes it more inclusive. And but we also need to have we also are asking to have a specific part um, for lipolymphedema, and that lymphedema created by lipedema, and so that can be even better recognized. So right now, it's sort of unclear if it's lumped in with the phenotypical descriptions of lipedema. Um, so um, yeah, so that's now then. I don't know. I can go on and on about there's also some discussion on what chapter in the ICD-10 as far as what it, right now it is under endocrine and metabolic. And there's, and why is that? Well, it almost always starts with a hormonal change. It almost exclusively affects women. And it is like, um, so there's also all sorts of other metabolic effects, all lipomatoses have some localized insulin resistance in the tissue that makes them less sensitive to weight loss. And then but globally, there's other metabolic changes in lipedema. Actually, the average lipedema lady is actually more sensitive and less insulin resistant in their visceral tissues. It's a systemic disease, and so endocrine and metabolic is a proper place for it. Now, but you can, and there can be arguments made for other chapters to put it in, but again, um, you know, right now for now, the most of the evidence, including the genes that we're finding that are associated with lipedema, are related to the most promising gene candidate is a gene, the RK1, that is the gene that codes for metabolism of progesterone.
Mm.
And so that is right now the clearest genetic explanation for lipedema. Now, it may be proved just a certain subset of women with lipedema, but it is certainly the best candidate for the mechanism of lipedema. More research is needed, of course.
So, Dr. Wright, the way that it's proposed right now to the CDC, there is a stage 4 that's proposed. It's kind of in a different place, but there's a clear stage 1, 2, and 3, and then when it moves to the 4, it's it's in there. It's in the proposed codes, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. For sure. Yep.
Yeah. So to kind of wrap up Jenny's question, yes and no. Sorry, buddy.
Here's my take on it, and I'm not an expert. I'm just a patient who just on my own have kind of looked into what all the codes are for and mean and how we as patients relate to that. My understanding with all of it is the CDC, I don't think really cares what stage we are in our comments. The comment is just that we are in support of it. So I just said, I think I am a patient with lipedema, and I might have said, I'm a late stage lipedema patient. And this is really important to me because So I didn't get into the semantics of I'm stage 1, I'm stage 4. I don't necessarily know that that matters to them on their end, and I may be wrong in that.
Mhm.
But I think the more concise and universal that we can keep it to get those codes, at least a lipedema code in there, is, in my mind, what's important.
Agreed. Yeah, that we're saying we support it as proposed, and definitely when you write your letters, and we'll give you guys the email address in just a minute to send the letters to. Um, as proposed, be sure and say, I support the codes being implemented as proposed, because the importance is to get the codes in there. And then we know that the doctors involved at some point in time, just as Dr. Wright mentioned, as they learn more, they'll go in and make modifications to the codes as they have more detailed information to go in there. So that was a fantastic question, Jenny. Patty, I'm going to feed you a question because I know this is one that you hit with Sarah the other day. So I was just making some notes over here. There's an ICD-11 system that was actually approved in 2019 and went into effect globally, but not in the United States on January 1st of 2022. There's a code in there, EF02.2 for lipedema. Why don't we just wait for it?
That is what I was, that's what I had looked into and was shocked because I found out ICD-10, excuse me, was presented in 2009. I think it was 2009, and it didn't go live, or maybe it was 1990. It was 24 years between when it got presented and when it got implemented in the United States. So even though it was presented, the ICD-11 codes were presented and they're being implemented elsewhere, and I don't know if that was part because COVID was happening or other things were happening and it slowed things down. I don't know why it was 24 years. And I don't know if 11 will be 24 years. But the idea of it is we don't have time to wait for however long. We need a code now.
Yeah.
So being able to add a code to ICD-10 is going to be a quicker process than waiting for ICD-11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense because every healthcare system has their own computer system that has to be updated to match anytime that they do code updates. And so I'm going to answer one of these questions from Helen that came in as well. So we've really studied the process that the Centers for Disease Control goes through to update the codes. They do, it's called the CM. It's like an addenda to the ICD-10, and they do it twice a year. So there's only 2 times a year that doctors can come in and present updated codes to be put in there. And so the one that Dr. Herbst and Dr. Wright proposed just a couple of weeks ago now, 10 days ago, they'll be making the decision. They'll be reviewing comments between now and October the 11th, and then the committee will go off and they'll make the decision about all the codes that were proposed sometime in November. So we expect around Thanksgiving we'll get word as to whether it was accepted as proposed or if they'll have to go back to the drawing board and make some changes. And then if it's approved, the codes would go into effect. The earliest I believe they'd go into effect would be October of 2025. But the CDC would be publishing that information really early so that all the medical systems can go in and get their databases updated and ready. So on October 1st of next year, when we go to the doctor, they should be able to pull up our diagnosis codes. And I know what I'm going to do is the day that it becomes effective, I'm going to email my doctor and say, update my diagnosis to this code, right? Because then all of a sudden my insurance company is going to get that too. Their database will be updated. So I can get, for example, my compression paid for or whatever treatments I'm having at the time. It'll be easier to connect it and then also track the prevalence of how many people are having this code on their charts, right? And that's really important. So thank you for that, Dr. Wright. 1999 when the 10 was proposed. Yeah, or 1990 when the 10 was proposed.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
So that's another good question, and I'll just keep answering this one real quick. Is this only in the USA? Yes. So the global medical community has an ICD-10. It's called the International Classification of Diseases. And so the world has started updating to the ICD-11, but then each individual country's healthcare systems or government agency that's over that tells us when they're going to make the adoption mandatory. So just like Dr. Wright was saying, Germany and a couple of other countries have already pulled in the ICD-11. where the United States, they haven't even set a date for when adopting the ICD-11 will be made mandatory, but it could be as far as 15 years away, or, some crazy number, because so many healthcare authorities go in and say we can't have our computer systems ready in time in 10 years or 5 years. So the fight that we're fighting today is for implementation of the codes in the United States.
Yeah, I was going to make a small correction. It's so they, I think Germany is still on the ICD-10. The World Health Organization is working on the ICD-11, and there's a placeholder for it, but that's not. It's not. I'm not sure there's anybody using the ICD-11 yet. But it will take decades for the U.S. to adopt ICD-11. It won't so. Yeah.
Okay, Patty, I know I'm trying to think back to your conversation with Sarah. What other questions did you all discuss whenever you were introducing the ICD-10 conversation that might help folks understand sort of the context of what's going on?
Some people were asking if we should reach out to our representatives, like we reach out to them for the Lipedema Treatment Act or the TROA Act that is in front of Congress. And Sarah was really great about that. She's like, it's a separate entity. The CDC has been given the ability to do this. So when we kind of come in at that approach, it looks like we're like paddling on the CDC for not doing it, but they're actually doing the process that they need to do. So for now, my understanding is we don't need to reach out to our representatives. We just need to have the public comments to the CDC.
I want to amplify that, and I mean it can actually backfire, because you can get them, you can annoy them with that kind of thing. They really are most interested in the actual literature and the reasoning. They're not really that's what their mission is, just about the disease, literally. So while I'm talking just for a second, this is all good. I will get. There are a couple questions about diet and supplements, and I will get to them after we. So I'm not ignoring them, but we. I'm sorry. So that was I'm not saying we're segueing. We're certainly willing. We can. Yeah. And Canada also, just so Canada is also not. It hasn't even proposed that, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, Patty, I know we were talking about emailing, and I am unable to post an email address in the chat. I'm going to read it to you, and then maybe we might see if either you or Dr. Wright have the ability to post that email address in the chat. So I guess a couple of important...
You don't have to read it. I can get it. I had it right here.
Okay. So you might be able to post it or something, because I typed it in and it just won't come in. So the important thing is that you email the CDC saying that, I'm a patient, I'm a caregiver, whatever your role is, and I support the implementation of ICD-10 codes as proposed. And the comment period is open until October the 11th, and then no comments will be considered if they're submitted after October the 11th. That's really important. I spoke with a lady at the CDC that we've been working with behind the scenes, and she encouraged me and said, every single comment is considered. Every single comment matters. And they do actually read the content of the comments, but they're watching to make sure that, there's no serious opposition or there's no grounds to not implement the codes. And while Patty's looking that up still, I wanted to say one other thing. When we found out that the codes had already been proposed, so Dr. Wright and Dr. Herbst have been working this behind the scenes before our organization was ever in place, and we've just jumped on the bandwagon to provide the support and some, behind the scenes support. We set up a petition on change.org back in June to support the implementation of ICD-10 codes. And we received over 500 signatures from that petition, and those signatures and information from those as well have been sent into the CDC as part of a comment as well. So that's a really strong support in the yes. And the folks who signed that petition, and you don't need to sign it if you haven't, but the folks who signed that petition, some of them had the opportunity to comment in there, and the comments have also been forwarded. So we thank everybody. Oh, thank you. Perfect. The comments have been provided to the CDC. So we started with the support of this ALA organization. We've already sent in hundreds of messages of support, and every single message matters. So please do it. While it's a Saturday here, if you haven't sent your email, please just go ahead and do it, so that'll be off of your plate, and they'll give the CDC some nice things to walk into the office with on Monday when they come back. All right.
And I was also very like, thank you very much for considering this. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'll hand it back over to y'all because I know you've probably got more information about that I haven't thought of. So Patty and Dr. Wright, we'll give it back to y'all.
Yeah, I don't recall any other. Those were kind of the big ones that we touched on. So I'm not sure if Dr. Wright, you have other stuff you want to discuss about it, or if people have questions directly related to the ICD-10 codes.
I mean, I think I kind of covered what I wanted. I do think that this has been a long process. And it's but worthwhile. So I was gonna. So is it okay if I answer a couple of these questions about diet or and supplements?
Sure. We have 19 more minutes, and I'd say the folks who are on can use them however they want now. That's great.
Yeah, and so there's been a good bit of literature on diets that are helpful. All of them are low in low carb, low in refined carbs. So there have been a kind of a modified Mediterranean. I advocate for what I call an anti-inflammatory diet, which is less. So what makes it anti-inflammatory is less processed. So whole foods as much as possible, and then low, and really especially avoiding refined carbs. Your baked goods, anything with added sugar, and even pasta, rice, and then quality. Also, less processed meat. So eggs, fish, meat, chicken, but not the processed meats, not your ham, bacon, sausage, lunch meat kind of stuff. And then emphasizing whole vegetables as much as possible. So that is the diet. Now, there's also been some studies for ketogenic diet has also been shown to be effective, so those are the diets that there's the best evidence that are helpful to women with lipedema. And I feel like that's individual. I think if you can do the ketogenic diet and you can stick to that, I think that's great. But many people become sort of fatigued on the diet, and I think that it's easier. The anti-inflammatory, low refined carb diet is easier for many women. And then I was gonna, if that is, so I was gonna respond about supplements. There are a fair number of. There's not a lot of research on supplements. I did a small study with diosmin, actually, and we found that helped with lipedema symptoms, both swelling tenderness, and actually a slight decrease in limb size. It was a very positive study. It was very small. It was a pilot study of like, I think, 30 people. And it took a few weeks on the diosmin. We used, so the type of diosmin is micronized, purified, frozen fraction, and that is the most bioavailable. But it's possible that any diosmin supplement would be helpful. I have quite a few patients who report improvement in symptoms with Mucinex or guaifenesin, and they found decreased pain and tenderness is what they generally report. And then there are some other things like N-acetylcysteine, and then there are turmeric and these sort of things. I have less experience and less evidence for that. But in fact, we don't actually know how and why the guaifenesin helps, but it seems to in a fair number of patients, maybe 50-60%. That's kind of the supplements for lipedema.
And since we have Patty here, I think it's a really important question. I'm going to just segue from the supplements and the diet to the next question. Is physical activity important in maintaining health with someone who has lipedema?
100%. In whatever way you're able to, moving is so key. And it's the thing I focused on for the past 10 years. My goal when I got diagnosed was really focused on any way I could move my lymphatics, because it's an inflammation, concern that I have, and the fibrotic tissue. So I've done research on taken courses on the connective tissue and fascia, and learning how to manipulate my fascia and how to move so that my movements manipulate my fascia. So I've gone way down the rabbit hole as far as all of that goes. And as much movement as you can do in any way. Being in the pool, aquarobics is fantastic if you can get to a pool. It acts like natural compression and helps with your lymphatics, and it's easier on your joints. And people just do really well in our community on that. Walking is always good if you're able to do that. I ride a stationary bike. I do CrossFit. I do strength training. It really is what you like to do, what you can do, and see how your body responds to what you're doing. Some of the stuff I used to love to do, I can't do right now because it makes my condition worse. So I did have to tweak along the way and find things that work better for me. And sometimes that can change from day to day too. So it really is about tuning into yourself and seeing how your body responds to what you're trying to do with it.
Can I add one thing? The absolute best exercise I recommend is sleeping in the water. So I think that is because the water itself creates, the weight of the water creates compression, and then the movement plus the weight, and you get resistance from the weight of the water. And so walking in the water, running in the water, swimming in the water, anything in the water is going to be great.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. So I want to open it up. I know we've been asking a lot of questions here. We have a few more minutes left. If anyone else has questions, while we have a few folks on here who really know what they're talking about and have been in the lipedema community for a long time, any other questions, feel free to throw them out there in the chat. And while we're giving you a couple more minutes to do that, I wanted to say too that if you are new to your journey with lipedema, find some support in the form of social media. It can be a very isolating condition, and there are so many influencers and people who have really taken the time to go out and build websites and information and communities that are supportive. And there are the different communities have different flavors, different sort of vibes with them, and find the one that fits for you. That not everyone is for everybody, but find one that supports you in the way that you need to be supported. Lots of them, and I am going to give a shout out to Lipedema Fitness because your community has just exceeded 10,000 members, right? And
16,000.
16,000. Okay, yeah. Oh, I should have put my glasses on when I saw that. But, Patty runs her community in a way that is like no Debbie Downers in the group. Like we support each other. There's no drama, and other communities allow different levels of drama and stuff like that. But find the one that works for you with the way that you need to be supported. And if you ever need help finding a community, definitely reach out to us because we try to follow the other influencers and communities as well because we learn from each other. And there may be a day when it maybe like I found something on PubMed because I was watching on a certain day, and I'll share it with other people. And then, maybe Patty with her amazing detective work can go dig into it more and really uncover, or we could even reach out to Dr. Wright and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or it even happened one day where I had stumbled across a research paper that Patty and Dr. Wright hadn't heard of, which is like mind boggling. But so it's good to have a lot of people, a lot of different eyes that are watching the paper sites and stuff like that so that we can share information as soon as we learn it. Okay, here comes a question in on red light therapy.
Yeah, lots of members of my group like red light therapy and have success with that.
Yeah. I think it's helpful. I mean, I think it, I understand so red light, this infrared, low energy, laser or diodes, can do some photo biomodulation. And I just don't know. I have not seen a lot of studies, but a lot of my patients have found help with that, and so that's where we're.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. There are so many options, and I know Lori, that there are so many options out there for self-treatment right now, which is fantastic because, like we said earlier, we all kind of present differently. We all respond to treatments differently. So I would always say if you can try it out with your therapist or with a friend or somebody who has a device that you would like to try, I would do that. Or I would try it, maybe get it on a site where you can return it if it doesn't suit you, because I have a closet full of things that I have tried over the years that didn't work for me, but they work really well for other people. So it is really trial and error for a lot of it. That's for you, Doctor.
Yeah. So, okay, first off, this is something I believe so passionately about. First of all, lipedema needs to be treated comprehensively. And so the diet that we talked about, the compression, the exercise, all that there is no cure for lipedema. They have to be implemented and maintained throughout for the rest of your life. As soon as you understand you have lipedema, you have a need, you should be doing the diet, the compression, the exercise, and it's very Dr. Herbst and I published a study that showed a greater recurrence in the areas in the U.S. in our U.S. experience. Now I see much less in mine, but I am very aggressive about implementing the diet, and I also use GLP-1s and other things to augment the diet and weight control, and those should be implemented before surgery. It's really important. You can't you're going to fully appreciate the effects of these interventions before surgery. After surgery, you have what's called after you recover from the surgery, there's sort of like a honeymoon period where you may feel better, but if you don't maintain those diet and exercise and conservative measures, it can recur, and it will recur more often if you don't. In Germany, the recurrence rate is much lower. My colleagues like Dr. Raffrich and Baumgartner followed his patients for 12 years and had almost no recurrence. Now, the diet and lifestyle is different in Germany. They walk everywhere. They don't. There's no fast food. There's very few fast food restaurants in Germany, and they eat generally they eat a healthier diet. I think the difference, that's sort of a kind of just an experiment from two different countries that shows that if um, if those lifestyle things are maintained, they're much less likely to have recurrence. So.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question, and this one is a pretty complex answer, and maybe we could touch on it. And then Karen, this is for Karen's question about what are GLP-1s. I think that this is going to be a fantastic topic for us to do a future webinar on as we continue to learn more about it. I know that Dr. Nicholas Pennings gave a really great presentation about it at Fat Disorders last year and is currently working on a book about it as well too. But let's take this one as our last question, Dr. Wright, and then we'll wrap up for today. And then we'll plan on doing a future webinar that can really dig down deeper into the GLP-1s.
So GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. And they just won basically the American Nobel for medicine this year. It's a protein, and there's also a GLP-1 GIP one that's like tirzepatide, which is sold as Mounjaro or Zepbound. You also know the GLP-1s, the semaglutide is sold as Ozempic and Wegovy. And so those are these are the medicines. They were originally developed for diabetes, but in addition to improving glucose metabolism, they also suppress appetite. And then those are the key things. But now we're finding they do so much more. They control compulsive behaviors, including even smoking and alcohol consumption. They have a direct effect on adipose tissue, and they have anti-inflammatory properties on that adipose tissue. So we're still learning. They do things to they improve liver function. We're still learning all the things they do, but they do quite a number of things on your whole body. But particularly, we have found that women with lipedema have improvements in pain symptoms and swelling, in addition to the weight loss that helps them. So that's now there's a question. Yes, but is this the one that paralyzes you? Well, they do. There are many medicines and many foods that slow gastric emptying, obviously, and I think there's like a 0.4% chance of that that of this stomach paralysis. I mean, it's like less. It's a fraction of 1%, and those people who first of all, it's dose dependent. So it would and it's almost always seen in people with advanced diabetes. So gastroparesis or paralysis of the stomach is something that is a complication of diabetes. On no medicines, just diabetes can cause that. This medicine slows gastric emptying, so those diabetic patients who are already predisposed to that, there's a small percentage of them that will get that, and that is it is dose dependent, so it would be only at the higher doses. But yeah, I mean that's a thing. There's some other very rare things. There's a association with multiple endocrine neoplasia, which is like occurs in like I don't know, like 1 in 100,000 or 1 in 1,000,000 people. So but these are very safe and generally well tolerated. They all do cause some nausea initially when you're starting them, and some other GI things that get away that go away after you've been on them longer, but they are dose dependent.
Yeah. So I think I will mention this again as we wrap up. One of the things that the ALA has been advocating for lightly, because we've really been focusing our efforts on this ICD-10 work, is we are starting to submit some requests for research to be conducted specifically on lipedema patients and these GLP-1s, GIP drugs, because we need to know more. And what our hope is, our long game is that we want to get it approved specifically for lipedema patients. So you don't have to be diabetic to get the Mounjaro or the other drugs that are the combination drugs, so that's going to be one of the things that we try and tackle, is just getting research conducted, asking for organizations to conduct research, or even the farm companies themselves to conduct research on our condition with their drugs. So more to come on that for sure. So why don't we wrap it up for today? I'll give you a couple of the key points that we wanted to make with you all today. One is we would love and welcome you to join the American Lipedema Association. Go to our website, americanlipedemaassociation.org, and you can see the membership pages right there. Feel free and don't feel embarrassed or anything. If you need that scholarship to join as a free patient membership, drop us an email at americanlipedemaassociation@gmail.com, and we will sign you up, no questions asked, and then get you in on our newsletters, these activities. We send out notices whenever there's an advocacy effort that you can participate in, and there'll be all kinds of activities as the organization continues to grow, where we need more patients to join in and take advantage of something, or maybe a research opportunity or whatever. So please join us. No pressure to pay the fee. If it's not feasible for you, please just join us. We want you to be a part of this patient group, because we want you to be represented and have a voice at the international level. And then the big takeaway is, again, thank you so much. The big takeaway is we would love for everyone to send your email of support to the CDC. And that email address is up here in the chat. It's NCHS-ICD-10 CM@cdc.gov. And it's up in the chat. Before October the 11th, letting them know you support the ICD-10 codes as proposed, so that they can count your vote. Absolutely. Anything else to wrap it up, Patty? How about you?
No, just thank you. Thank you for tuning in and having an interest. And if you have other options or other ideas or suggestions for us, please let us know.
Absolutely. Okay, Dr. Wright, any final thoughts from you?
No, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody's attention, and yeah, thank you. Have a great evening, great weekend.
All right. Thank you so much both for being on. All right. We'll go ahead and wrap this up. And then we know that this recording is going to be posted out on our different social media channels as well. And we will be sending out emails in the future as soon as we hear anything about the outcomes from this ICD initiative and other advocacy efforts. So thanks for your time and have a great weekend. We'll see everybody later.
Bye-bye.